Get your ears wrapped around the Golden State Media Concepts Basketball Podcast. All the scoop you need to know, from college basketball to the NBA and even March Madness. News of your rising stars, topics on and off the hardwood. This is the Golden State Media Concepts Basketball Podcast.
Hey, what's up, everybody? You are listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Basketball Podcast. I'm your host, Pauline, and in this episode, we're going to discuss pretty much a wrap-up of both Team USA men's and women's basketball teams with their exhibition games as we move on. We're just a few days away from the opening ceremony in Rio, and so the Olympics is underway. Is about to get started underway. So I wanted to give kind of like a wrap up of the exhibition games as well as a look into what to expect in the Olympics for both of our teams, our national basketball teams. So keep it locked here. This is the Golden State Media Concepts Basketball Podcast.
Check out the show that's built on the MMA, from the UFC to extreme cage fighting. They got the fights covered. Check out the GSMC MMA podcast. Get the latest news on past or upcoming fights. Join us as we talk to and about some of the biggest names in the MMA, past, present, and future. When it's the fight game, there's just one show to check out. GSMCpodcast.com/MMA-podcast. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
And welcome back. Like I said, I'm your host, Pauline, and this is the Golden State Media Concepts Basketball Podcast. And there's a lot going on this summer that, in basketball in general, there's a lot going on. Last episode, we discussed the NBA pulling out of Charlotte for the All-Star game. We also talked about just some things happening with the WNBA and getting fined for some things that they were trying to accomplish and using their platform to do. There's been a lot. I talked about Stephen Curry's basketball camp that I just didn't like with the prices, of course. But so has been a lot this summer going on in basketball, both on and off the court. So last episode, if you were listening, I talked to you guys about how our women's national team is basically undefeated when it comes to Olympic play. And it's not surprising because, again, I truly believe that the U.S. sets the standard. The NBA and the WNBA sets the standard when it comes to basketball. That's just the main goal for both American players as well as international players, is to come play in the NBA or the WNBA. So that doesn't surprise me at all that the WNBA that our women's national team is dominating. Pretty much ever since they allowed professional players to play, our men's team has also really dominated the international world as far as on the Olympic side. They did lose to Argentina a couple years ago in the Olympics, but this year there was a little bit of talk about the men's national team at the beginning of this summer in regards to the Olympics, and some people were doubting our team and just not quite sure how well they were going to do, and not quite sure with a lot of our other major players not playing. Chris Paul, LeBron James, Stephen Curry, Anthony Davis. I've talked about those guys in previous episodes and the reasons why they are not going to be participating in the Olympics. But then a lot of people were worried that Carmelo Anthony would be basically like the veteran Olympian teammate on this team. And some people were saying is he really going to step up and lead the teams? And honestly, yes, lately he has been playing great. He has really stepped up to the plate in regards to assuming that role. And I don't know if you guys saw, there was a video clip of the team, the men's national team, on the plane, and they were all singing, and they were doing, like, it was just short clips that were getting posted around and them singing along and things like that. And there was at one point, and I was cracking up because I just thought it was hilarious. There was one point where the camera kind of like pans, like I think it was just done, on somebody's cell phone, whatever. And you see Carmelo sitting on the plane, and he has like his hoodie on, the hood over his head, and he's just kind of like leaning against the window, the side of the plane, and just looking so annoyed by everybody else doing this like karaoke sing-along thing that they're doing. And I just thought it was funny because I don't know, he just seemed so annoyed. He seemed over it, and the other guys are just having the time of their life, and you just see him for a few seconds, so you don't even really, like, they're not focused on the fact that he's not participating. They're mostly focusing on the guys that are participating. But I just thought that was funny because he just looks like he's annoyed. But you can have fun on the plane. I know it's all business and they're looking to win, but it just, because they barely caught him in the corner of the frame, and I just thought that was hilarious. But anyway, so Carmelo has been assuming that leadership role. And so Team USA recently on Monday wrapped up their exhibition games by beating Nigeria. They are 5-0, our men's basketball team, in the exhibition games right now. They beat Nigeria 110-66. And through these last exhibition games, our men's national team has won these games with an average margin of 43 points. So they're not just beating these teams. They played Venezuela, they played China twice, Nigeria. They're beating these teams by a huge margin, which is great going into Rio. We don't want to have any losses at all. Like, I really do hope that they go the entire time without any losses. But it's really nice, of course. That's why you have like preseason games. You have these exhibition games to kind of work out the kinks and to build the morale going into your league. So like in this particular case, so it's going into the Olympics, but just in general, when it comes to like preseason games during regular league play, you have these games to see what you need to work on, who is stepping up to the plate, what is a good mesh for the starting five, what are we trying to accomplish, what things do we need to work on, and things like that. So it's really nice that Carmelo has been having the chance to really step up and show his leadership roles. He had 19 points in the win against Nigeria, so he's consistently doing very well as far as putting up the points and being a leader, both in like just his example of play. So I'm really excited. And I mean, Carmelo Anthony does really good in international play anyways. Like, I think that he is a really good international player because his style is just a little bit different. There's a different rules when it comes to the Olympics than the way that we're normally used to with NBA league rules. Like, for instance, the quarters are only 10 minutes versus 12. Players only get 5 fouls, and that includes technicals and personal fouls. So if a player were to receive a technical foul, that goes just to that 5 foul allowance. So that's a little bit different. There are the overtimes are the same, so it's 5-minute overtime, but little things are different. Like the 3-point line is a little bit closer, just little things that are different for than what we're used to watching the NBA style of ball. So it's going to be fun to see how our men's team does continuing on into the Olympics. They there's a lot actually that I have to say about the Olympics, even with like our men's and women's national teams. And like I was saying before, how the exhibition games are a time for teams to figure out their starting five, to figure out their flow and everything. So with the women's national team, they actually have not had the same starting five for any of their exhibition games. Now, I've been kind of singing the praises for the women's national team lately, especially in this last podcast and in today's episode, because they deserve it. They dominate all the time. And I know that women's sports always seems to, for whatever reason, get looked over. However, you know, praise is due where praise is due. And the women's national team is pretty much a dominating force in the world of basketball when it comes to the Olympics. So with the women's national team, now let me just break it down a little bit for you. So they have all the scoring champions since 2008 on the women's national team right now. They have 5 WNBA MVPs, and collectively they have over 58 all-star selections with these players on the team. So that alone, just, when we talk about that our men's national team is the best of our best and a group of all-stars, the all-stars of our all-stars, the women's basketball team is exactly just that. And so the only 4 players that have consistently been starting, there's 4 players that have been starting for the women's national team. And in these past exhibition games, it's Sue Bird, Diana Taurasi, Maya Moore, and Tina Charles. And so they have added in that last 5th player of the starting 5 has been kind of different. They've been rotating a little bit, trying to find a mesh to go with. And Brittany Griner was not part of that starting 5. And she was saying that she actually likes coming off the bench, especially in the Olympic Games right now, because it is a different style of play as far as the international rules and things like that. And she says that she likes coming off the bench because that gives her time to actually see how the refs are calling things, to kind of see how the players that she's going to be defending and playing up against, kind of like seeing their style and seeing how they're playing, because some of these players are unfamiliar with. They're not always playing against these international players. So yeah, I'm sure that they do a lot of research and they watch film and all that, but it's different when you're seeing them in game mode right now. So she was saying that she actually likes coming off the bench and she doesn't mind that. So it's another thing where the women's team, they just want to win. And so they're kind of like, whatever starting 5 gets us ahead and gets us those points up, then that's what we want to do. Nobody's being like really quite selfish where they're like, I have to start. I refuse. Because, Brittany Griner, we look at her as one of the best players in the WNBA right now. And it's like, she's a very dominating force inside. And so for her to even say, hey, look, I don't mind coming off the bench. Let them start off. Let me do my thing off the bench and then come in as a secondary force to kind of win these games is really cool. So that's all that I have right now for this segment. When we come back from the break, we're going to talk about Draymond Green, because I cannot overlook what has been happening with him lately, with just everything as far as, and also some more on the Olympics, looking ahead as our teams get ready for the Olympics and what they're going to be doing to prepare for that. So keep it locked here. This is the Golden State Media Concepts Basketball Podcast, and we'll be right back.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
And welcome back to the Golden State Media Concepts Basketball Podcast. I'm your host, Pauline, and looking ahead into the Rio Games, there's been a lot of, I've kind of touched on different factors that have been kind of like plaguing the Rio Olympics when it comes to the different players and different teams. And there's a lot of talk, of course, in regards to the Zika virus. There's a lot of talk most recently, part of the Olympic Village. And the Olympic Village is basically where all the Olympians are supposed to live. And that's where it's hosted by the host country. They provide the living there for the athletes. And that's a time for, it's just like a community for the Olympians, and that's where they live. They can interact and engage and enjoy other Olympians from around the world. And some of them, like I was reading articles about it, and how there are some Olympians that always go to the Olympics, these past Olympics. So like they're, they frequently make the Olympics. And so they go and they see their friends that they haven't seen in a while, and they catch up and all of that. And so it's just a place and a time. And I think it's kind of a cool idea, the Olympic Village, I do. However, most recently in news, there was a fire that broke out in the Olympic Village. There's been like theft in the Olympic Village. And I think you guys remember when the Winter Olympics in Russia, they were having a lot of problems with different, like the facilities not working and things like that. And that's what's happening in Rio as well. There was a picture of Andrew Bogut actually trying to fix his shower curtain, because I guess like the shower curtain was not up or just not correct. So he was trying to fix that, and he was just a little bit frustrated with that. There's been talks of, I think I mentioned, of things getting stolen from the Olympic Village. So some players are just having, like, they're just going through it when it comes to their living space right now, when some of those Olympians. However, it has been reported, now this was actually brought up a while ago, a couple months ago, I believe in April, when when the NBA, like there was some rumors going on that Team USA, not the NBA, but Team USA men's and women's team were not going to be staying at the Olympic Village. And now it's not mandatory or required that Olympians stay in the Olympic Village. However, if they do choose to stay elsewhere, such as in a different hotel or a different location, then their team has to fund that. Like, so there's housing provided for them, but that's not required. And so if teams decide not to stay in the provided living facilities, then wherever else they decide to stay, they just have to cover it for themselves. So it has been semi-confirmed that our basketball teams, the men's and women's teams, are actually going to stay on a cruise ship. So they're going to stay on a Silver Sea cruise ship, and the cruise ship houses, I think it has over like 200 rooms. So I assume everybody would get their own room and things like that. And the reasoning behind this is what they were saying is that it's going to be more conducive to them having a more an environment for competition. So like they're not being distracted and things like that. And it's not like the players cannot interact with other Olympians when they feel like it in the Olympic Village on their free time and things like that. But just as far as like their living situations, they want them to be more comfortable. They want things to be just taken care of for them so that they don't really have to deal with any of those other issues. And it's kind of just a controlled area for the men's and women's national teams to stay. And so, I don't believe that I don't think, don't quote me on this, but I don't believe that the last couple of Olympics that the men's team has actually stayed in the Olympic Village. So I don't think that this is actually uncommon for our men's national team to not stay in the Olympic Village. So, but they will be staying on a cruise ship reportedly. And I actually I don't know, I get it. I really do. I think that the Olympic Village thing is a cool idea, and it is, I'm sure, a very cool experience. But just like, like when you're in college, and a lot of colleges, like your freshman year, you're required to stay in the dorms, and they want you to like make friends, and like you have like your dorm meetings and your dorm friends, your dorm mates, and you go eat dinner together and all of that. But then after your freshman year, and once you've adapted, you can live wherever you want. You can live on campus, you can live off campus, whatever. And so like I kind of get that whole reasoning behind it. However, they're not in college. I'm sure, especially for like these grown men and women on the national basketball teams, especially because a lot, like with the women's team, this is not new to them. They're used to being in the Olympics. So there's like that novelty of like that first time is not really there. And plus they want to win. You know, like, I don't know. I guess during the Olympics, that is a time to make friends, and that is a time to get to know other amazing, phenomenal athletes from around the world. Because if you can make it to the Olympics, you are a phenomenal athlete, regardless of whatever sport it is that you play. And to have that opportunity to represent your country, you're just a phenomenal athlete, regardless, no matter how big or small your sport is considered. And so I get that too, but if you're just trying to win, you don't really need all that novelty and that festivity and that fun of like, let's get to know each other, let's play icebreakers. Like, I don't know. It's just, I don't know. It's not something that I think is really all that necessary. So, and it's not like they're not allowed to go to the Olympic Village if they are not staying there. And plus, with all the other things that are going on, it just eliminates room for there to be a lot of problems and a lot of things. Cause like poor Andrew Bogut, I felt so bad when I saw that picture of him trying to fix the shower curtain, you know, and I'm sure, like, especially if the part of the village that burned down, like, that's really disappointing. And if you are an athlete, you don't want to have to worry about your living situation when you're just trying to compete. So I get it why Team USA, men's and women's, our basketball teams are just not dealing with that. And they have to foot that bill. That's fine. So I get it. I think it's actually a better idea. It kind of makes me, it's a little interesting though, that they're on a cruise ship, which is of course docked in water, and with the Zika virus, you don't really want to be near water. Yikes. So I'm not quite sure what they're going to do as far as that part is concerned, because it's kind of like they were telling athletes not to like one of the proposals with the swimmers and other athletes that are going to be like dealing with water and things like that, to not like let water get into crevices, not to open your mouth underwater and things like that, and not to like, because there's other parasites and things that live in water. So I don't know. So I guess they just can't jump in to the water, and they're going to have like, can you just imagine Carmelo Anthony, Kyrie Irving, and all of them with their like mosquito nets over their beds, because, hey, you got to protect yourself from all of the situations. So I guess that's what they're going to have to do if they're going to be docked in water. So we're going to cut it to a break real quick. And then when we come back, I'm going to discuss, of course, Draymond Green and his infamous summer that he is just having. He is just having a summer. He really is. And I just hope that it just slows down for him when it comes to all his shenanigans. So we're going to take a break real quick. And when we come back, we're going to wrap it up this episode. This is the Golden State Media Concepts Basketball Podcast. Keep it here.
Are you looking for the very best NFL and college football podcast? Then check out the GSMC Football Podcast. Get the latest football news both on and off the field. From the NFL Draft to trades to the rumor mill to the NFL Combines, they got you covered. That's GSMCpodcast.com/football-podcast. Get updates on college rivalries, game day insights, and much, much more. It's football talk the way you want it. This show eats, sleeps, and breathes football. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
And welcome back to the Golden State Media Concepts Basketball Podcast. And we're getting ready to wrap up this episode. But before I mentioned before the break, Draymond Green has been having quite a summer. He unfortunately did not win the finals this past season with the Golden State Warriors. And we do know that he was suspended for a game for some of the aggressive mannerisms that he has when he plays. And I did mention before in earlier earlier episodes, that I don't mind his style of play. I like how aggressive how he plays. I like his passion behind the way that he plays. And honestly, with that suspension, I didn't quite agree with it. But anyway, so he had that. And then most recently, a few weeks ago, he was arrested on assault charges when he was back in Michigan for slapping a college student. So that got taken care of. Now we have moved forward. They Team USA has begun their exhibition games. Everything seems better. Draymond Green, seems to be laying low. However, most recently, Draymond has found himself in the middle of another apology this past week because of a Snapchat. So Snapchat, you can post a picture and you can either send it to an individual person who you want to send the picture or the video to, or you can post it to your story. And with the story, the picture or video will be up for about 24 hours, and anybody who follows you can see whatever it is that you posted. So Draymond, doing whatever Draymond wants to do, he had taken an explicit picture of himself, and instead of sending it directly to whoever was supposed to be the recipient of this picture, he actually posted it to his stories. So for a full 10 minutes, his picture is just out there for all of his followers, fans, young, old, male, female, everybody to just see himself there. And of course, in this age of social media, 10 minutes is a very, very long time to have anything embarrassing or anything posted. And so Draymond actually did not even realize that he had made this mistake until people started tweeting about it and posting it and kind of like making fun of him and like just freaking out over the fact that he had actually made this mistake. And so he of course had to apologize for that because he took it down and everything. He deleted it, but by then it was too late. It's just over social media and over the internet. So I don't know. I thankfully have not seen that picture, so I'm not quite sure exactly what it was, but he did apologize for that too, and he was saying that he's just going to learn from this and that he really is trying to just focus on basketball and focus on the Olympics that are going to be starting this week. So it's just really funny to me because Draymond just cannot win this summer when it comes to anything, and it's like he's trying, but just because it's Draymond, and it would happen to Draymond and it would be up for 10 minutes. So that's been his excitement this summer. Hopefully, from now on moving forward for the next couple of weeks, the only funny or exciting things that we have to report on when it comes to Draymond will just be how well he's doing on the court and how well Team USA is doing, and that he will not have any more of these like mishaps or any little things that are just going to make us laugh at him. And just, I personally think it's hilarious. I don't think, I don't really, it must have been a mistake. However, those kind of mistakes you really just cannot make. And I mean, it's not like he's new to social media. It's not like he's my dad or somebody who doesn't know how to work Snapchat. He's young. He uses Snapchat, I'm sure, regularly. So I just thought that was hilarious. But in my previous episode, I did also mention that Amari Stoudemire has decided to retire, and that after signing with the Knicks, he did retire last week. And I did mention that there was some talks between him and some international teams that he may not be retiring completely from basketball, but actually just retiring from the NBA. And he has reportedly signed now with a team in Israel. And now Amari Stoudemire, he's Jewish. He practices and everything, and he has made it very it's very well known, his religious background and his religious beliefs. And so he actually owned some part of the team that he's going to be playing for. They're called Hapoel Jerusalem, and he actually owns some stocks within that team. And so as part of his contract, he signed a 2-year deal with them, and as part of that contract, he will actually sell his portion, like his shares in that team, to the majority owner so that he can play for this team for this 2-year contract. And so he has been going back and forth to Israel, and his family and his children are going to be moving to Israel at the end of this month. So he has, Amari Stoudemire has had a really good career in the NBA these last few years. It's been a little bit shaky just due to some injuries and things like that, but he's very excited. He said he's very excited to move to Israel, and that this is something that he looks forward to, and that retiring from the NBA wasn't retiring from the NBA and moving on to Israel isn't as a step down for him. He's actually very excited. He wants to live in Israel. He loves Israel. They vacation and own property and teams there in Israel. So it's just it made sense for him to make this transition. So Amari Stoudemire is also not the only person who has decided to retire and perhaps continue playing again. So Derek Fischer is someone that we all well know. He played 18 years in the NBA and he's won 5 championships with the Lakers. And most recently, he has been the head coach for the New York Knicks. He was fired back in February, however, by Phil Jackson. And so he was fired. They were kind of, the Knicks, he was their head coach for about a year and a half. And it's hard to change a team. In that stint that they were with him, they didn't win that many games and things like that. And actually during that time period in February when he was fired, they were actually had only won like 1 game out of like 10. So they weren't doing that great. There was some speculation that he perhaps was fired due to some issues that he was having with Matt Barnes outside of basketball, but Derek Fischer did say that was not the case. But anyways, so Derek Fischer has kind of hinted at perhaps making a comeback into the NBA. He's been retired for just a little while. He's of course stayed in shape. He was saying that he continues to work out and that he's always worked out and stayed, I guess, on top of his game even after retirement. But he posted a video most recently and put the hashtag that he's planning on coming back, and but he has also said via Twitter that there isn't anything like solid. There hasn't been any real conversations with him and any organizations as far as like potentially coming back. There's no negotiations going on. It's just kind of like a desire of his, and that if somebody were to reach out to him, an organization were to reach out to him, then he would definitely have that conversation with him. And I think it's kind of interesting because he's a little bit older. He, I believe, is going to be 42 this year. So he is a little bit older. And the last time that a coach actually, like a player retired, was a head coach and then came back, wasn't the most recent that's ever happened, because it doesn't happen that often, was actually Magic Johnson in 1995. So it's been a while. It's not like it can't be done. It's happened before, but I don't know. Derek Fischer, if he were to come back and sign with somebody, he would be the oldest player, which doesn't have, age really doesn't have anything to do with it if he's saying that he's still in shape. But I don't know how much more of a career and what much more he would want after having such a successful career. He had, like I said, he played 18 years in the NBA, and that in itself is a long time. He also was a big face with the LA Lakers, and when they were with Kobe and everyone doing such a phenomenal job. So he has 5 championships already. So I really don't know what else more he would want. In a previous episode, I did mention that, Ray Allen was, looking to come out of retirement as well. I don't know. I don't know what Derek Fisher's doing. I think he is just not quite sure what he wants to do. He has been doing some, work on NBA TV as being an analyst for them as well. So I don't know. He's kind of like in between. So it's like he's not quite sure what he wants to do, and I guess he doesn't want to coach anymore. I think he should be looking for another head coaching job or a job either at the like the collegiate level or something. So I'm not quite sure what he's exactly doing. It'll be interesting to see if anybody does pay him any attention with him saying that he wants to come back to the NBA. I think he should just, you should just throw in the towel when it's time. And I don't know. I don't know. I was kind of surprised to see, because I thought at first it was kind of like a joke, until he took to Twitter and was saying, look, if somebody reaches out to me and is actually willing to talk about this, that he is serious as well. So we'll see what happens with that. I mean, it's been a crazy free agency this off season, and a lot of things that we didn't think were going to happen have happened. So who knows? So that's going to wrap it up for this episode of the basketball podcast, the GSMC basketball podcast. I'm your host, Pauline. When next week we're going to talk a lot about, finally the Olympics will be starting. So we'll have a lot to talk about with that. And then also other things that have been happening with free agency and other signings going on throughout the NBA. So of course you can also listen to me, listen to any of the other podcasts at gsmcpodcast.com. You can listen to us on iTunes, Google Play, SoundCloud, and also, like I always said, I don't think I've told you guys this episode. However, I'm on Twitter at gsmc_basketball. You can follow along there. You can listen to previous episodes on Twitter as well. So I'll talk to you guys next week. I'm your host, Pauline, and that's a wrap.